learners, I extend my heartfelt greetings to you in the module 15 of week 4. As you know, in the previous 2 modules, we have learnt about sustainable development and various environmental issues. In this module, we will be learning about ethics and social responsibility towards the environment. The learning objectives of this module are to define the ethics and social responsibility towards environment, to develop a set of basic right and wrong behavior for each of the 7 environmental issues discussed in the previous model, to understand the influences on the ethical decision making process of individuals and organizations, to appreciate the collective social responsibility towards caring for Earth as one community, to draw an insight into the potentialities of the concept of corporate social responsibility. Friends, let us look at first the environmental ethics. As defined by Aldo Leopold, who is remembered as the father of conservation biology in the world, an ethic ecologically is a limitation on freedom of action in the struggle for existence. An ethic philosophically is a differentiation from anti-social conduct. The spirit of this definition runs into a major global action that is called the concept of care for Earth. As you can see in this picture behind, all human hands have come together to take care of the planet Earth with all its natural resources that help us survive. And you would very well appreciate the fact that survival for a human being is not an individual act, it is a collective act. So we have responsibilities, we have good behavior, we have do's and don'ts for the community. The concept of care for Earth describes the natural resources, the land, the water, the air, the plants, the animals, everything residing in the planet Earth as part of the community. Just like our friends, neighbors, relatives are a part of our community where we live, we survive with them. We cannot imagine our own existence without these friends, relatives, neighbors and people who are in our community. Similarly, the concept of care for Earth, it puts in the arena of the community all the various living and non-living objects, biotic and abiotic factors as part of the community. Factors such as land, soil, water, air, these are the abiotic factors, and factors such as plants and animals, the hundreds and thousands of species of flora and fauna which are the biotic factors. Now we will look in great detail the concept of care for Earth. This happens to be a strategy for sustainable living. It believes that conservation is not the opposite of development, but the protection and rational use of natural resources is upheld in this strategy for sustainable living. It also believes that people have a limitless capacity to both build and destroy. Now the ethics in the concept of care for Earth, they would like to invoke the limitless capacity of people to build as compared to destroy, because we have had enough of destruction, and now with all the modern education that we have, it is time that we come together and we build nature in its natural state and build our own future, future of humanity, future of our collective community. Under this strategy, there are 3 objectives. One is the essential ecological process and life support systems must be maintained. Genetic diversity must be preserved, because our own genes are just a part of this global genetic pool that is there for us as an insurance for the future. And the third objective is that any use of species or ecosystem must be sustainable. Now we know what is the definition of sustainable. Sustainability very simply is defined, I would like to remind, it's defined as using natural resources for the present generation by keeping enough opportunities for the future generations to be able to use them, develop and survive on the basis of these natural resources. Now the question arises, why caring for the earth? The answer is that to help improve the condition of the world's people, we define two requirements. One is the development of ethic for conservation by deeply held commitments, and two is to integrate conservation and development, where conservation keeps actions within Earth's capacity and development enables people to enjoy long, healthy and fulfilling lives. Remember, we began this module by saying that we believe that conservation and development are not the opposites of each other. They can always go together if we recognize certain limits. Now, how and why will a person recognize, respect and restrain himself or herself to particular limits? Only because he has the global ethics and the universal values which are aware and which can appreciate the concerns of the environment. There are 9 principles of sustainable living that have been defined in this concept of caring for earth. We will be taking them one by one, but as you can see in the picture behind, that these are 9 different principles, but none of them are isolated. These are principles that are all interlinked because they are all aimed towards the achievement of a single goal. The first principle is that of building a sustainable society. To be able to build a sustainable society, not a single organization or not a single individual, but a complete society that values the ethics and morals of sustainability, we need a strategy, because nothing is possible without a strategy. We need a strategy because most important issues are strongly interlinked, because tasks will be easier if we work together, because as you know, divided we fall and united we stand, and because experience has taught us that no single group can succeed by acting alone. The second principle is that of respecting and caring for the community of life. Friends, we do understand and we are very convinced about the care that we should put on the human community, on societies, on social groups, on social organizations. We understand the importance of truthfulness, we understand the importance of respect, of national integration, of social harmony, of peaceful coexistence. Now, according to this concept, with the same degree of emphasis, we want to bring in the respect and caring for the community of life. Ethic is a creative force. What people do depends on what they believe. So ethic defines both rights as well as responsibilities, and everyone should take responsibility of his or her impact on nature. So people should conserve ecological process and diversity of nature, use resources frugally and efficiently, and people should be aware of their rights and responsibilities towards nature, just like they are aware of the rights and responsibilities of other people on them in a civilization. So this is like an embryo, it's an entry point of caring for the community of life, just like we care for the community that we call humanity. The third strategy is improving the quality of human life. The purpose of this strategy is to enable people to enjoy healthy and fulfilling lives. The basic needs of food, shelter and health, as you know, are still not being met. We are very modern, we have developed, but then we still have incidents of farmer suicides, starvation deaths, malnutrition, undernourishment. So these basic needs of all people should be met. We should be aware of this fact. Unemployment and underemployment, they remain serious problems in many countries. In lower income countries, increased economic growth is needed. In upper income countries, maintenance of their quality life with reduction in resource consumption. The north-south divide, we will talk about it in the next module in great detail. There has to be improved healthcare, provision of universal primary education, the reduction of illiteracy, and enhancing security against natural disasters. These have all been now incorporated as part of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that we looked at in the very first module. Conserving Earth's vitality is the ninth strategy. It's the fourth of the 9 strategies. Conserving life support system that nature provides, conserving diversity of Earth, ensuring that all uses of renewable resources are sustainable, adopt a precautionary approach to pollution, cut emissions of harmful gases, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve conservation of wild plants and animals, improve knowledge for understanding species and ecosystem. The fifth strategy is keeping within Earth's carrying capacity. As we saw, this was one of the first guiding principles of the Sustainable Development concept of caring for Earth strategy. The upper income countries, they enjoy a high standard of living, and the lower income countries, they are miserable and to barely tolerable. They suffer from disease and poverty, unemployment, and a very, very deep divide between the rich and the poor. Because the rich, they control world's markets, resource flows, prices, and finance. Hence, an increased awareness in this regard is also needed, because the capacities of the earth are limited. The resources of the earth, on the basis of which there can be any development, they are finite, they are not infinite, and because growth cannot be limitless. Now, to achieve all this, there has to be a change in personal attitudes and practices, and this is where the role of ethics and morals as a society towards environment becomes more and more pronounced. Poverty can force people for unsustainable utility. Even those who accept the need to live differently often fail to follow their ideals. So we have to educate and equip individuals to lead a sustainable life. So the review of the status of environmental education is very important, and environmental education has to become a part of the regular curriculum, the regular syllabi, and it has to be taken up very, very seriously. Our next strategy is to enable communities to care for their own environments. That is capacity building and independence in the local communities, because ultimately they are the ones who are in direct contact using their environment. So this depends on beliefs and commitment of individuals. Sustainable community, it can care for its own environment without damaging those of the others, and this is possible by education for sustainable development. The objective is to sustain productive local environment. The communities should be provided with secure access to resources and an equitable share in managing them. They should enhance their participation in conservation and development, and for this governments and the corporate sector, the private sector, should be geared to providing them financial support. The eighth objective is to provide a national framework for integrating development and conservation. We have to build a public consensus around an ethic to live sustainably, and we have to drive it into the consciousness of the people, just like they are conscious about speaking truth, not thieving and not gambling and not drinking. Similarly, people should be made as conscious about the do's and don'ts regarding the society for sustainable living. Environmental laws should be provided not just in letter but also in spirit. Economic policies can be effective and they can be made an instrument of delivering conservation and sustainable living instead of coming at loggerheads with conservation. As you know, we began in the very first slide that we believe that conservation and development are not the opposites of each other. Establishment of a comprehensive system of environmental law should be done. Provision should be given for its implementation and enforcement, and provision of economic incentives should be done for conservation and sustainable use. The ninth and the final strategy is creating a global alliance. Now, please remember the blue marble, and then please remember the image that we saw as part of the concept of care for earth. Hands, all hands of different countries, of different continents, of different peoples, and when I say peoples, I mean peoples, of different ethnic groups, religious groups, societies coming together and uniting in the name of sustainability, because ultimately this planet Earth is a heritage for all of humanity. So we have to act globally. Climate change, ozone layer depletion and pollution of air and water are such worldwide threats that make us realize that we have to rise above the divisions of political boundaries, of countries, of states, of regions, and come together and unite for building sustainable societies. International law should be strengthened, and ratification of carbon emission limits and climate action should be implemented by the global community, and we have to increase the capacity of lower income countries to help themselves. Now, additional activities of ethics towards social and sustainable environment are to develop explicit natural energy strategy, to reduce the use of fossil fuels, waste in energy distribution and pollution from commercial energy generation, and develop renewable and other non-fossil fuel energy sources, use energy more efficiently. The second is the role and responsibility of business, industry and commerce. Promotion of sustainability through dialogue between industry, government and environmental movement should be strengthened and emphasized. We have to adopt high environmental performance standards backed by economic incentives and commit each business to sustainability and environmental excellence. We have to identify hazardous industries and locate and operate them with some stringent safeguard. Human settlements should adopt and implement an ecological approach to planning. We have to develop more effective and representative local governments committed to caring for the environments, develop an efficient and sustainable urban transport facility, and make the cities clean, green and efficient. For the farm and rangelands, because they exist at very close edges of natural ecosystems, a great responsibility of farmers and rangers has also been entrusted. We have to undertake a national strategy for sustainability, protect the best farmland for agriculture, promote effective soil and water conservation through proper land husbandry, control the use of fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides through regulations and incentives, because it has been proven that chemical agriculture is harmful for the land and then we come to the forest lands. So, we have to establish a permanent state of natural and modified forest in every nation and manage it to meet the needs of all sectors of the society. Increase the area of planted forest, increase national capacity to manage forests sustainably, and expand efforts to conserve forest genetic resources because they are an important storehouse of the gene pool. Freshwater management, improvement in the information base for sustainable water management has to be done. Education programs on sustainable use of water have to be undertaken, and training in the management of human uses of and impacts on the water cycle have to be provided, while identifying and protecting aquatic species that are rare and threatened has to be undertaken. The oceans and coastal areas, just like the freshwater resources, they also require our attention. A national policy on coastal zone and oceans is required. Mechanism to coordinate the planning and allocation of uses of the coastal zone. Promoting the concept of marine protected areas, just like national parks and sanctuaries, and conserving key and threatened marine species and the gene pool. So, the implementation and follow-up involves study and education of the strategy and implementing it through inculcation of ethics and values. The strategy can be promoted by campaigns, by awareness drives, by organizing governmental agencies to implement the strategy, and also by continuous monitoring. As we spoke about the involvement of the private sector, we must look at the concept of the corporate social responsibility, because just like individuals and governments, it is also the responsibility of the corporate sectors, because they are utilizing, sometimes without optimizing, the natural resources for growth, economic growth, and for production. So, according to the guiding principles of the CSR rules under section 135 of the Companies Act 2013, CSR is the process by which an organization thinks about and evolves its relationships with stakeholders for the common good, and demonstrates its commitment in this regard by adoption of appropriate business processes and strategies. Thus, CSR is not charity or mere donation. CSR is a way of conducting business by which corporate entities visibly contribute to the social goods. Socially responsible companies do not limit themselves to using resources to engage in activities that increase only their profits. They use CSR to integrate economic, environmental, and social objectives with the company's operations. Now, I would like to introduce an activity that will help you appreciate nature in its totality, so that you can always adhere to the ethic, the social ethic of nature conservation. Take a plate and arrange 20 twigs on that plate. Now, ask some 15-20 friends of yours to sit around that plate. Initially, 6 of you can act as deer and 4 of you can act as wolves. Now, now start eating the twigs just like the deer eats grass. The only condition is that every time 6 deer eat a twig, you can add only 6 twigs. So, as you know, in an ecosystem, if there is grass and deer and wolves, the wolves will also be preying upon the deer. Now, let 4 wolves kill 1 deer. Add 1 deer when 100 twigs have been replaced, and observe the balance. This is eternal. This can go on. The ecosystem has the capacity to continue to produce grass for a limited amount of deer, and the presence of the wolves is there to keep the ecosystem, its activities, energy flow and nutrient regeneration intact. Now, some of you act as disturbance, anthropocentric man-made disturbance. Suppose some of you are hunters and you have killed all the wolves. When all the wolves have been removed from that plate, you can add deer after deer, because now nobody is killing the deer, but you can add only 6 twigs because that is your limit of nature. Soon you will see that there are no twigs, the deer have eaten all the twigs, so there is no grass, and now the deer are dying because of starvation. So this is how the supreme wisdom in nature has put everything in place, and this is how man has not been made the owner of this natural resource, but a part of this natural resource. Further readings that I am recommending in this are the Land Ethic, the reports of the Department of Conservation, Religion and Ecology, the Center for Religion and Ecology at the Harvard University report, the Dalai Lama's various discourses as a goodwill ambassador, the Agenda 21 that came out as a part of the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, and the document produced by the Thailand government on voices and values. So with this further reading, a greater appreciation and understanding of environmental ethics towards achieving sustainability by building sustainable societies, sustainable organizations, sustainable campuses, sustainable schools and colleges and universities can be understood, and I have also included some 10 questions which will be acting as a quiz for the students, and you can send me the answers when you have seen this quiz. Please go through the reading material attached with it. I will see you in the final and the 4th module of this week. Thank you so much and happy learning.